Hello everyone, watch this review here with 2011 in review, a comprehensive look at the year 2011 as it pertains to figure collecting, with some focuses. Now, as previously mentioned, this will sort of be broken into multiple segments. Part 1 is an overview of 2011 in terms of companies and, just a grand scale look at things. Part 2 will be sort of focus on myself as both a reviewer and collector. Contains updates for the previous year. Part 3 will be some of the coolest items from 2011 I haven't had the chance to pick up yet. Part 4 will be my top 11 of 2011. Then Part 5 will be some of my favorite items that I picked up in 2011, not necessarily came out in 2011, mind you. And then finally, I think the wrap-up will be just some general talk about stuff to look forward to in 2012. Now, this video has been something of a long time coming, in no small part just because I was racking my brain trying to figure out good things to say about 2011, and that was basically the whole delay. I can't think of a whole lot of nice things to say about 2011. I think it's mostly because 2011 is something of a gap year. 2010 had some really cool entries and stuff, and then 2012 is just dwarfed by all this really massive news. Especially this mostly pertains to the West with your Hasbro and Mattel. Other companies sort of keep things more standard year to year. But if you're a Hasbro fan and a Marvel fan, all you could think about in 2011 is Marvel Legends, Marvel Legends, Marvel Legends. It's coming back, it's coming back. And all the cons, they were, had big segments and stuff devoted to the series, and it more or less dwarfed the coverage given to Marvel Universe, which, had an okay year. I wouldn't say that it had as many standout figures 2010. In fact, it actually had to redo some of the previously released figures, like we got single card versions of Doctor Doom and Ultron, originally seen in the Secret Wars 2-packs, with new paint decos, of course. But on the whole, Marvel Universe, didn't seem to carry the hype that it did the previous year. Especially in the light of Marvel Legends, which, come on, it's big news. Now, some of the, criticisms about the Marvel Universe selections this year sort of centered on the Sentinel, where he reused a lot of parts from Galactus. I personally didn't mind about that. Some people weren't fine with the colorway that went to retail first. They would prefer to have just seen the variant, which I believe is going to retail now, originally released at Comic-Con. And of course, a lot of people made inevitable comparisons between that and the Marvel Legends Sentinel, which, featured finger articulation among other things, and, people kind of wanted that when the new Sentinel came out. But that's not to say that Marvel Universe didn't have some really cool items this year. Increasingly, we are seeing nicer joints on the smaller scale figures, including foot pivot. Quite a few figures had a significant amount of it, which, is basically unheard of for stuff that's that small for the most part, including also, ball and socket wrists, which again is just really awesome stuff. Now, obviously, 2012 is going to have a lot more cool stuff. They're going to be giving us a new Hulk that sort of has the joints, the World War Hulk, which will be really awesome. But in general, Hasbro, kind of not a lot going on, in some senses. I know quite a few Transformers fans, the purists, were more than a little upset about the coverage given to the Dark of the Moon line. One person I know kind of described the year as being a waste because, they wanted the classic stuff. They wanted Generations. Granted, Generations did come out with some really nice stuff this year. Well, granted, Thundercracker was kind of overdue, but he sort of just a colorway of the Seeker mold, so it's not as big news. But we did get Sky Shadow and what's the other one, Thunderwing? Thunderwing made last year, but Sky Shadow was really awesome looking, and Generations did have some representation. More confusing is the Star Wars line because I'm not sure what the theme was, if anything, this year. In 2010, if you recall, there was sort of this heavy Empire Strikes Back slant where they're re-releasing some snow speeders. We got a brand new AT-AT and all other stuff. And this year, I can't recall any specific focus. Next year, of course, they will be doing the tie-ins for the prequel trilogy, which is going back to theaters again. But, I should probably pull up a visual or something. I don't have a visual prepared. Before I forget, there are some other Hasbro Marvel notes I should toss out there. It does look like they finally got rid of the 3 3/4 inch Spider-Man line. They didn't really seem to ever do much with it. People weren't really paying it a lot of attention despite having, some really decent figures in it. Unfortunately, the few really good stuff was more or less overshadowed by the fact that it was almost entirely colorways of different Spider-Man, variants like these stupid armors and crap, most of which weren't anything to do with the comics anyway. But I was really pulling for that just because it used somewhat different jointings for some of the figures, and plus, they were using more original sculpts, and it was featuring some Spidey villains that were making it into the Marvel Universe line. So, as of February, I think there weren't any sort of listed updates, so I think it is officially gone at this point, especially because when you find stuff showing up at overstock retailers, typically means that these things are going out for regular retail. So it sucks, but it happens. Also, in terms of the whole Marvel 6-inch, I should point out the fact that while we weren't getting Legends, we were getting sort of Legends-esque things, such as the Iron Man Armored Avenger line, which, was pretty decent. Partly incorporated some previous stuff from the Walmart exclusive Iron Man 2 figures, which, is not too bad. And then it featured some new items, which is cool. Unfortunately, both of the follow-ups to the Iron Man 2 line, in terms of the movie lines, kind of sucked. The Captain America and the Thor, well, they failed for different reasons. Iron Man 2 was largely successful, not just because it was a massive blockbuster, but because all the different Iron Man suits and the War Machine suits work independently on their own level. Most of them were based on something. And of course, you could display them as halts of armor. Now, Captain America had tons of different variants of Cap. The issue there is the fact that most of these things weren't based on anything at all. Like, you'd have Arctic Attack Captain America, Jungle Camo Captain America. They're just mild retweaks or repaints of the same mold. And you really can't build a haul of Captain Americas because they're not armor. So, I don't think that line will probably ever have as much success as the Iron Man 2 line. And I expect it probably won't even stay in retailers all that long. Granted, it did bring us at least 2 decent figures in the form of Red Skull and also Crossbones. The Winter Soldier is also pretty nice looking. I didn't pick that one up though. And then, of course, the Thor line. I don't know, the detail on it wasn't as nice. At least they didn't have as many different versions of Thor. Like Captain America had dozens and dozens of Captain America figures. I think the Thor line was a little bit lighter in that regard and actually helped build up some of the supporting characters, which again was really nice. The only issue there is I don't know, the quality just didn't really seem to be all that snuff, and I guess the Iron Man line really set the bar pretty high, and it's really a tough act for anybody to follow. Also, I forgot to mention, but the Captain America line did at least sort of give us troop builders in the form of the Hydra soldiers and stuff, just like the Thor movie gave us frost giants or mini frost giants. The only issue is I've yet to really see a Hydra agent that doesn't have like a bent knee or something. So I mean, they just really went heavy on the production flaws or whatever. It's annoying because it was a really nice mold and a nice looking figure besides. Well, they have several different versions of them. I'm referring specifically to the single card, not the deluxe. But yeah, let me jump on to another company, so it's not just the whole Hasbro podcast. Mattel. Mattel, wow. Where do I go start with this? The 6-inch line continued to branch out. We saw the spin-offs in Batman Legacy and then the Young Justice line. The issue with Young Justice is just the price point is unnaturally high. It was $20 for a figure that, I guess it's a little bit smaller because they're teen scaled and stuff, but it is within the 6-inch scale. And then a little playset, which for the most part aren't even all that cool. But since then the price has actually gone up at a lot of retailers. It's actually up to $21, and I just don't think that you're quite getting your money's worth for like that. So I mean, I'm hoping that at some point they'll just tone down the other things in it to get the figures to a more reasonable price point, although I don't think that's entirely an expected scenario at this point. The bigger sort of news is just the fact that they're switching over to a club model for DC Universe Classics. It will continue to have some retail exposure, although, I mean, for all intents and purposes, the line is functionally dead going forward. That's more a 2012 update. The big issue with that, and the thing that I absolutely hate, although I mean, on some levels I am fine with it just going all online, it does mean that you won't be able to find stuff as cheap as you can right now. But the bigger issue is you're really getting less value for your money because you're paying the same 15, or actually more than that, 15 if you're in the club, 17 I think is if you're buying individually, and you are not getting a collect and connect piece. Actually, I should pull up something for this Club Infinite Earths. Now, even if you can overlook the fact that you're losing out on the collect and connect piece, you're also suffering the additional pricing from, or will be suffering the additional pricing from having to pay the shipping and handling every month, which also is going to really suck. Because, I mean, instead of doing like everything at once, they'll be releasing one figure, then you pay the $8, and it's always like $8 shipping and handling for the one figure. So I mean, you're looking at maybe like an additional, I guess, once per month, again across the year. It's like another $96 in added expenses because it's not at retail, and that is completely awful. Personally, I'm not sure how everybody else is going to go, but other than a few really select figures, I'm just going to wait for Maddie to do a sort of combined sale where, they have everything up on the table at once. And you'll be able to buy it for, holy crap, $18 for the... It's not even $17, it's $18 if you're buying individually. I hate this. I hate this so much. But the Poison Ivy, Atrocitus, for instance, I'll just buy them when they come out, and everything else I'll wait, and then for a big group sale, pick up all the figures at once. Then I'll save a bit on the shipping and handling. I mean, it's a lot to expect for the whole shipping and handling angle. But in general, 2011 was a pretty decent year in terms of what you were getting. One of the things I did not appreciate was how they handled the Stellan Stripe issue, where basically, like previous examples, you're getting a slightly redecoed Collect and Connect, which is just kind of scummy. Collecting Connects should basically be more distinct, especially Stripe, where I think it's supposed to have like a bulkier build. I don't know, I'm not terribly familiar with either character. I mean, it's just something I have a general issue with. The other Collecting Connects, pretty decent. Apache Chief, I mean, come on, that's a kind of cool character. Then Bane, it's a big fan favorite. Interestingly enough, no. It was the first year, I think, since the line started that they didn't do a store exclusive wave. Previously, Walmart had a store exclusive wave each year, then Target had the Public Enemies wave. The Walmart continued to get the 5-packs, though, and actually was the best 5-pack to date. The first one, was just some lame redecos and stuff with a somewhat new Lex Luthor. The second one, I guess we kind of got newer stuff, the Green Lantern things, but I mean, really, people would buy it for the Tomari and the Green Lanterns, Sinestro, but the rest, oh, of course, Guy Gardner. Guy Gardner was also really awesome. But I mean, it's still like the Crime Syndicate was just such a stronger choice, and Owlman looks completely awesome. Unfortunately, I did not get the packs in my area. I never get the 5-packs for whatever reason. I did ultimately see the Green Lantern one last year, but for some reason never saw the Crime Syndicate ones. I did pick up Owlman loose though, so I will actually be reviewing him. I guess the other really big thing for 2011 for Mattel is the Green Lantern movie, and I could actually devote a series of videos on how they mishandled that line. To call it a spectacular failure would completely fail to convey the level of ineptitude exhibited on basically every level. First off, from a promotional standpoint, they started the line by tossing a, I guess, sort of Movie Masters figure in with Green Lantern Classics Wave 2. Except for you're not entirely sure if it's intended to be Movie Masters 1 just due to the whole size issue, which in itself is kind of annoying, but you'd have like they broke it into so many different parts for the waves, and keeping in mind that all this stuff connects to one large collect and connect. I mean, there really was a poor choice on their part, especially because the initial parts didn't sell well, so you very rarely see anything after the first 1 or 1.5 waves at retail, meaning everything is basically going off online, and it's something of a miracle in itself that Mattel did just call it quits there. I'm not sure what the people in marketing were thinking, but God, it's just really staggering. I mean, I'm just not sure how any company could really view that as being viable, especially something in this sort of a business where you have to have an awareness of what retailers will and won't do. The final insult to injury was the fact that they sold the core Collect and Connect piece, the Parallax, separately. So, I mean, even if you can overlook various quality issues with it and all the little knickknacks, I mean, they just really screwed the pooch on so many levels. The 4-inch line really could have used some more articulation. In general, I don't know, they were asking a lot for the price point. They were trying to do $8 for something that, isn't on the same level as a lot of other 4-inch lines. Because it was only this basically 5 joints. Arms, legs, at hip, and head. And the overall level of detail paint wasn't a whole lot, but it was cool because we got all sorts of neat energy constructs, so at least that was a plus. The retroaction line also, I believe, came to an end last year. I was really liking the retroaction line by the end. I was hoping that they'd bring back a lot of other classic characters, but I guess this just wasn't to be. $20. It wasn't something I was really following. I was more or less picking it up a bit cheaper from places when they were like $10 or less. So I mean, I don't think it had ever quite met expectations at retail, and I I'm not entirely sure that the other retroaction lines currently being hosted retail will continue to be so, especially given the setbacks seen by other lines. In fact, just given the fact that they canceled the Ghostbusters Club Ecto 1 for next year, I'm not sure why I'm still seeing a ton of various Ghostbusters merch at retail in terms of retroactions and stuff. But I expect that it will probably dry up in the future. The other sort of, I guess, bigger news is the fact that we have all these huge clubs going into 2012. Like we get well, basically the two new ones are Club Infinite Earths and then, the new Voltron Club. So, I mean, there's definitely some stuff to look forward to, even if this year we ended up losing out on Club Ecto 1. I don't so much collect Masters of the Universe Classics. And honestly, this year there weren't a ton of items that really interested me. I mean, Panther I would have loved to pick up, but 2010, back when Battle Cat came out, that was like some pretty huge news and stuff. We didn't really see something quite on that level this year for it, but I mean, I'm sure there are lots of really significant items for fans. I believe a lot of people were excited for Many Faces or Manny Faces. I don't know how to pronounce that name. And then they unleashed the first vehicle, which is this one glider thing, which I guess is pretty big news for the line as well, because so far they hadn't done stuff like that. Again, it's not something I necessarily care about. Also, while I don't necessarily collect Masters of the Universe Classics, there are several entries I am looking forward to in 2012. WWE I don't ever touch at all. Jumping on to NECA or NECA, they they sort of relaunched their Gremlins line this year. It included some really decent looking Mogwai. Unfortunately, a lot of the content that they're releasing, the items I'm most interested in don't actually drop till next year, but the George and Lenny were both really awesome. The Gizmo didn't pick up. But I mean, granted, he still looks good. These all look better than the previous Mogwai that they did. I recall them releasing at least one other Gizmo, which looked absolutely horrendous, and they actually have stepped up the articulation quite a bit, as well as the price. The price has also been stepped up. Previously, these large guys were like $10 at Toys R Us. Now the Mogwais are 12, the large ones are 16, I think. So, for the additional articulation scene, you do pay a little bit extra. They also released a RoboCop, which is sort of big news. It was actually a big year for RoboCop in general because Figma also did a RoboCop. Supposedly, neither one was all that great, although the Figma one was more heavily articulated. All that stuff. Yeah. The NECA one supposedly had all sorts of minor issues, although, the NECA one's only like $15, whereas if you buy the Figma, it's something like 30, then whatever you have to pay to actually ship it, because you're not going to be able to find that in retail. So you pay more, you get more, but in a smaller package or thing. And there wasn't a lot of other for NECA I can really recall being like really significant or noteworthy. Diamond Select had a few things for the Marvel Select line, including the Juggernaut, which was pushed back from the end of last year. That was definitely one of the coolest items of the year. And it's one example of how 2010 should have stolen the show, where, had it come out a little bit earlier, it'd be on that one instead of this one. But I mean, 2011 really does need its props. For the Eastern lines, I can't say that Figma really did a ton of impressive things. Now, they did have several items that kind of were on the back burner for a while that came out this year, such as the Figma RoboCop. I believe he was supposed to have been released a bit earlier, but the big one was the Michael Jackson, which I knew a lot of people were waiting to pick up. Frankly, this thing was too creepy for me. It's got the whole Thriller face going on. This, of course, is the classic Jackson, not the weird plasto, rhinoplasty, whatever, white Jackson that we all came to know during the 90s. This was the look that you'd see in Thriller, most of his better stuff. I'm not sure why it kept getting delayed, but I think it was actually supposed to come out in like 2010. No, not 2010, I think even earlier than that. I don't know, it was just pushed back for quite a while. But Figma in general didn't really have a ton of offerings that I'd really consider especially noteworthy. Again, it was more just schoolgirls and stuff because it's more or less their niche. Additional versions of characters we've seen. I believe they finally released Guts from Berserk. Just confirm that. No. Yes. No, actually, it was released this year, it looks like. Yeah. Yeah. On the Rebel Tech side of things, we did see some kind of significant characters get released, or... See, it's tougher to tell with the import dates, because you hear lots of news stories for these other import lines, and, cause it sort of works a different system where you have to pre-order, and then if you don't pick up, like, within the first few months, they're like impossible to find except off secondary places where you get completely raked over the coals. But they had Rebel Tech had a Kenshin, which Kenshin's a massive anime character, which didn't come out terribly well. They did an Alucard from Hellsing. Again, I don't know, something about it just didn't jive with me. Mostly because they have those giant revolver joints for like some of their parts. Let's actually pull them up there. Yeah, this review's running long. This is only part 1, folks. It's only going to be longer from here. Here are the images in Toy Arc. So it's just the joints are handled kind of oddly. The figure itself looks kind of pretty good. And then, of course, they're also going to be doing, what was it, some of the characters from Full Metal Alchemist, including Edward Elric, which again, really solid looking sculpting, but due to the whole way that they handle the joints, it just looks ridiculous. Look at those inner elbows. It's like, ugh. Very neat character, although I personally was never all that into the anime. The first series turned me off, then yeah, I'm not even going to bother the second. The SJH Figure Arts line, Bandai's import stuff, saw some sort of big releases in terms of additional DBZ characters. You saw me review the Vegeta, which again is actually a US exclusive and stuff. Supposedly it hit here before there. It's a great looking figure. They also did a Super Saiyan 3 Goku. A bit more expensive. The only real accessories were the neat, energy things popping out there. And then they also did You know they did one other DBZ character, but it's probably not as important. On the flip side, they released Kazuma from one of my favorite animes, or anime, Scryed. The one downside was he didn't come out terribly great. Mine personally had a defect on it. I'm not sure if it's a defect seen in the line. And then since like paying the 2,400 yen, you can find him pretty widely available for I think it's like 1,500 or 1,600 yen, which means a difference of like $10. It's kind of significant. The other big issue is the fact that everything other than Kazuma has been a Japanese exclusive through one of their, I think it's just direct through Bandai of Japan or something, and it's pretty expensive to import. I mean, typically when you buy these things new, you're paying like $40 before shipping and handling. In these cases, it's like $90 before shipping and handling. This is Form 2, which really is something they should have just included in the first figure. I mean, because all it is additional parts. I mean, 90% of the body's the same. It's just a new arm, different back thing, different hair sculpt, and different face piece. And then, of course, it was the same for Ryoho, who I believe came out this time as well. I suck at spelling his name. Again, this one I really wish I could have picked up and stuff, but it's just sort of a steep price. I think it was like, I think Big Bad Toy Store actually offered him, because I wouldn't even need to have gone through a proxy, but Big Bad Toy Store wanted like 130 or 140, which is pretty huge. This, of course, is his altar. He summons this to fight with for his Form 1. Pretty neat item. Again, just it sucks that these things aren't so available in the West. On the domestic side of things, I should just point out that Bandai did their Thundercats line. Now, almost immediately, they start off with the 8-inch. They had sort of a mixed reaction to the 8-inch because, let's face it, it's sort of an awkward size. I did enjoy it after a while, but it doesn't really scale so much with a lot of other figures, so they pushed it down to the 6-inch. When I first learned that information, I thought, there had to have been a mistake, but indeed we are getting 6-inch Thundercats Classics now, which is in scale with their new Thundercats stuff. The quality isn't quite on par with the previous items. They have like exposed screws in the back, but the bigger issue is that they're only doing 2 of these figures at a time. So, I mean, all these years I was waiting for a Thundercats revamp. A lot of other fans were as well. I care more about me, though. Just a little selfish tidbit. And then we only get 2 of the classics a year, and then, they do a lot of their newer stuff, which, it's, I don't know. Man, that does make sense, because that's what the cartoon's coming out for, but personally, for me, it's all about the retro. Bandai, of course, continued to expand on their Power Rangers line. They always do their Power Rangers line. It had the significant inclusion of a Reader Repulsa for all these years. The only issue is that the Reader Repulsa came out awful, so that was another childhood thing shattered by Bandai. Really not liking Bandai right now, or at least the Western Bandai, especially because they don't have the level of quality evident in the other ones. By the way, if you think that Reader Repulse is bad, you should have seen the one that actually went to retail. Face was a lot worse. It was kind of like, oh, actually here it is. Let me look at that. It's like a pancake. All painted in dot eyes. It's like, oh god. Surprisingly, those actually sold though. I mean, just wrap your head around that. Because I was into Walmart. They had, I think there's like 6 of them on the shelf. They're all gone now, so either they ended up clearing them out, but the time frame wouldn't work for clearing them out, or they actually all sold, despite looking that awful. So yeah, you know, yeah. In general, I'm not even sure what to expect from Bandai going forward, although I haven't been paying as much attention to their releases. So yeah, that was an overview of the various companies for, just 2011. Obviously, there's some that I omitted. I didn't really touch upon DC Direct because I don't really so much collect DC Direct stuff. And, yeah, there are probably some other significant ones I completely overlooked for no apparent reason. But yeah, until next time when I have the next part, unless this is the compilation video, at which point you just keep watching and I'll keep playing.